All right. Thank you, Jeff. Well, again, good morning, everybody. My name is Charlene Margot, and I am the co-founder and CEO of nonprofit The Parent Venture. And we are really delighted to be here this morning and to see all of you who are there in person. And of course, we are virtual. I have with us today co-founder Bev Hartman. You can wave, Bev. And our presenters, Kate Browne and Bruce Smith. Again, we're really happy to see all of you, and we hope that this will be a productive and interesting meeting. Kate and Bruce are both experienced educators and also have lots of experience, particularly Bruce, in coaching. Kate has a long history around sports too, so we know that this will be a good event today. We want to thank the Sequoia Healthcare District. As you know, PE Plus is one of their initiatives, and Ann Wasson, the Director of School Health, for joining us today. Thank you, Ann, and thank you, Sequoia Healthcare District's longtime partners, also of the Parent Education Series. All right, so today's format is going to be about 30 minutes of content from Kate and Bruce, and then we really want to hear from you, the coaches and trainers. So have your questions ready. We know that Jeff has prepared some questions, and you've got things as they come up. Feel free to type them in the chat, or or Jeff will type them in the chat, okay? This event is being recorded and will be available for the future on our video library. We'll also make sure that Ann and Jeff get the link to this video. We work with the boys and girls of the Peninsula to do our videography, so that has been a long time, nice partnership. All right, let me tell you a little bit about today's presenters. Kate Browne is the program director of the ECE Department at Skyline College. Now, I think 18 years. Is that right, Kate?
Yep. Lots of students have gone through our department and become teachers.
That's right. For the past 9 years, she's also served as president of the Faculty Academic Senate at Skyline. In 2014, Kate was appointed by the board of the governors of the California Community Colleges to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. She is also the author of Beginnings and Beyond, an ECE textbook, now in its 11th edition. Congratulations, Kate.
You know, the first edition was dedicated to my daughter, and now this last edition was dedicated to her daughter. So I got to get it right one of these days.
That's a wonderful thing. So Bruce Smith has been a swim coach for over 30 years. He is the head coach of the Menlo-Atherton High School swim teams and a founder of the Palo Alto Stanford Aquatics, now entering their 20th year. PASA grew from a small recreational program to a top age group program over the past 20 years, producing junior national champions, senior national and Olympic trials qualifiers, and national record holders. Please join us in a really warm virtual welcome for Kate and Bruce. Take it away.
I also want to let everybody know that Bruce was also my coach and my children's coach. So he's coached difficult people as well as easy ones. But we weren't champions.
You were, yeah. We heard that. There we go.
Well, welcome everyone. We can see you from a distance. We wish that we were with you in person. And since we don't really know each other very well, I hope that what we have to say will be useful to you. And also that any of your questions that you have get answered, either a little bit of what we say at the beginning here, and then with the question and answer part of it. And at the end, I think maybe we could put some things in the chat or send to Charlene some additional resources that might be helpful. One of the things that I thought I'd just let you know is that both Charlene and Bev and I used to be, we met and taught at Bing School, which is the lab school for Stanford University, for many years. And we learned a lot there about how to work with children. We worked with children as young as 2.5. Our programs also had parent programs as well as preschool, full day, and school age programs. So we hope that some of the information that we've learned about child development could be useful. It certainly was for me as I went on to teaching children, but also working with their parents, working with a team, and eventually teaching a lot of grown-ups about children. So just a couple of points, and then I'm going to hand it over to Bruce. One of the things that we learn as educators that can be really helpful is what I sometimes call the rainbow of development. When you think about school, a lot of times you think about learning like your reading, writing, arithmetic, kind of the subject matter. And the subject matter matters, but it's only a piece of development. In other words, there's a broader sense of development that we need to take into consideration because we're really teaching a person, not just a subject.
Right.
So when we think about learning reading or learning math, that's what we call the cognitive aspect of development, or the intellectual part that has to do with thinking and language and communication. That's an important piece, but it's only one. And that piece includes communication around talking and listening, both, not just listening to what somebody tells you, but actually talking it out to come to some understanding. The other side of the rainbow, in my head anyway, is the physical motor piece. And that's something that coaches think about a lot. The large motor or gross motor, the fine motor, and also the perceptual motor, where you have to use your head, your thinking, and then make your body do something. Both of those are really important. The biggest piece of development, though, is what we call psychosocial or sociocultural, which cannot be neglected, which is the social part, people getting along with each other, the emotional part, people being able to learn how to express themselves and understand others' expressions, the cultural piece, how you were raised, what your values and beliefs are, your creativity, and also your spiritual development. So that's like the biggest piece of the rainbow that often gets overlooked. And I just wanted to say those three pieces about the rainbow, because when you have that whole person in front of you, if you're only going to look at one of them, you may have some complications or problems because you've ignored the other part of themselves. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
The other
What were the three again? Could you summarize
what
it?
the three? So it's cognitive, thinking and language. It's physical motor,
Right,
movement of your body,
Mhm.
and that combination of mind and body. And then it's psychosocial.
Yeah.
Social emotional is how a lot of people describe that. So those things I think are helpful to keep in mind, particularly as you get to know somebody.
Yeah.
What's their first language? How much experience have they had moving around or being in this sport? And then who are they as a person? How do they get along with other people? How do they start making connections? The second thing is that as a teacher, but also as a coach, you are responsible for creating the environment that's going to have that this learning or this experience is going to happen in. And a lot of people say, well, so what's the environment? Why does it matter? It's really important to recognize that actually there are three aspects of the environment that you need to take into consideration. Obviously, the first one is the physical environment. Right. Are you teaching in a pool? Are you teaching outside? Are you teaching at a table? What's the deal? So that physical part of the environment is important. It's really important. And I'm looking at Charlene and Bev. We spent a lot of time figuring out how to arrange the physical environment, both indoor and outdoor, so that it was conducive and actually being a teacher of kids, so that kids could learn things without you always having to talk to them.
Right.
That's physical environment's very important. But you have two other things to keep in mind. The second one is what we call the temporal environment, or the time. And you as the teacher get to think about, okay, how long is this practice going to last? Do I have an hour? Do I have 3 hours? If I have an hour, how long can they listen to me?
Yeah. What are you going to do with that?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do with that time? And again, I'm looking at my colleagues. We thought really carefully about what the daily schedule should look like. Did we have the children for 3 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours? Did we have them for a sleepover? Did we have them for 30 minutes? And what are you going to do with that time? And the final piece, and you won't be surprised that I say it, is the interpersonal. It's like that social and emotional part of the development. It's the interpersonal environment. What's the mood? What's the tone? What atmosphere do you create? And when lots of kids are interrupting, how does that change the tone that you want? And then how are you going to get that back?
Yeah.
So it needs to be a welcoming, belonging environment, but not one where you don't have any part in it. So that sort of, to me, is like the sum total of those three aspects. And then my final point is that, in a way, what you guys are doing is what we teachers do all the time, which is look at the curriculum. That's the framework for teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to think about developmentally, who are these kids? So how can I create a curriculum or a goal or a lesson that they can learn from? And then that piece of that, I'll just say this again, in some of the most innovative curriculum models, really think about what's the teacher's role in that.
Mm-hmm.
So you plan, you do it, and then later you review it to see what happened, and how much do you let them participate or even create, and when does that make most sense in terms of your lesson plans?
Yeah.
All right. You see how Charlene said, yeah, I could talk for way too long. So those are just kind of the basic sort of the rainbow of development, the three areas of the environment, and curriculum for teaching and learning.
Yeah, and I think, well done. And I think, so when I thought about this, I was, I've been coaching for embarrassingly 3 decades. So I kind of was like, I feel like I could probably share some principles or philosophies or, things that I think are important for coaching. And I think Kate and I are going to kind of banter back and forth to kind of take those and maybe kind of show how they apply to what she just talked about. And I don't have any particular order. These are just how they kind of came up in my mind. But I think one of the first things, since it sounds like a lot of you guys are new to coaching, I think one of the most important things is to kind of figure out what your coaching philosophy is, or what your coaching style is, or what your objective in coaching is. And it kind of sounds really big, because if you've never done it, it's kind of like, I don't know. And when I first started, I was very lucky to have some very experienced coaches to work under, and they kind of became my mentors. And so watching them, some people that I had high respect for, or thinking back to teachers that I used to have back in high school or middle school that made a huge impression upon me, or coaches that I had that were very impressionable on me, looking back at them and what I learned from them really helped me begin to create my style of coaching, my philosophy of coaching. And then obviously that's constantly evolving, right? As you learn more, experience more, you kind of change. And,
it's interesting that you say that, Bruce, because I was just thinking about it. I teach this foundations course out of that textbook that that Charlene mentioned. And in those beginners, I asked them to think about their own educational biography. How did I learn, and who did I learn from, and who would I never ever want anyone to have again? And then also their teaching philosophy. And what I find is that when they're at the beginning, it's pretty simple, and that's okay, because I get to see them when they're student teachers and they're ready to develop a deeper philosophy. Yeah. But getting an idea at the beginning is important.
Well, and it helps direct you, right? You're, coaching and teaching and working with people, nothing's ever straightforward, right? There's always going to be high points, low points, difficult points. But if you always have your principles and your objective and your coaching style, you always have that to fall back on. So when you get into that difficult situation, you can take a breath and be like, okay, to me, team is always first. So I have to look at it from that side. And I think kind of it's a big term, then people might get kind of lost of like, what in the world is philosophy or principles? So I just without describing them too much, some of the ones that I work with are team first, creating a positive environment, process out over outcome, like how are you getting there as opposed to how fast you are, coaching the whole person, not just the athlete, but realizing that to make a great athlete, you need to make a great person, and creating self-reliance, right? Finding that way that the athlete doesn't always just need to be told what to do, but can sometimes figure out what to do. So that just hopefully gives you a little bit of an idea of that piece.
Did you read my book about the whole person?
That's
a good one.
And then, kind of my, based off what that is, like, one of the big things I think that's important when you're coaching is creating that team culture. And every classroom you go into, every team that you're a part of, and you can see it at the professional level, right? The Warriors have a different team culture than, the Jazz does, or something like that. And you can feel it in the coaches and you can feel it in the players. And I think it's very important that some time and energy is put into creating your team culture. And I think, once for me, I think it's about creating a team that becomes a family, because when everybody's close knit, doesn't mean they have to necessarily be best friends with everybody, but if they just respect everybody and they feel that everybody is important that's on the team, it creates this environment that people are willing to focus more, put more energy into. I don't quite know how to say it, but if you just think about your own family, if me, somebody who you've never heard of, calls you while you're, doing your homework, and I'm like, hey, I'm stranded, my car just broke down, can you come pick me up? You wouldn't do it. But if it was a close friend, a relative, something like that, you'll drop everything you're doing and you'll help them out. And I think that's creating that team culture. And I don't think it's, there's big ways to create team culture, like doing field trips, or we do travel meets, or we do training camps. But you can also do it in simple ways, like just ways that force everybody to interact. And one of the, one that I was going to highlight was, we do this fun thing that we call bring anything but a water bottle to practice. Right. So they can't bring a regular water bottle. They've got to bring something else for their water. So, everyone's bringing like coffee mugs and stuff like that. But then, there's that kid that brings a fish bowl, and that's all of a sudden funny and creates this. It's just that, anyway, I'm kind of rambling.
Yeah. But again, it's that interpersonal environment. It's that tone of belonging and of welcoming, that everyone has a place in it.
Exactly.
Even though everyone isn't the one that's going to be, batting cleanup, everybody's
has a role,
and it's a part of the game.
Yeah. And that's what's also fun, is you do some of these social events, and which everyone, first of all, it takes out of the normal routine, which is exciting in and of itself. But it allows everybody to have their opportunity to shine. Just like Kate said, they might not be the best breaststroker, the best, pitcher or whatever, but they have that opportunity to shine in their own way. So I think creating that team environment and that team culture is really important. Kind of skipping around, I think one of the kind of the third thing is, I think, remembering that the tone that you want to set has to come from the top, right? And you're the top, you're the coach, you're the one who creates the philosophy. And, to give real world example is I was going through a point where my team was struggling, and, nobody was kind of getting along, and everyone was kind of, not necessarily positive with each other. And it was a real struggle. And then I had to take a kind of evaluation and sit back and realize that even though I had positivity as one of my principles, I was going into practice and always being negative. This isn't going well. The team's not doing well. No one's performing. Nobody's getting what I'm telling them. And so I think that's very important, is like creating that team culture and putting in your philosophy. It has to come from the top. You actually have to live what you want them to do. Yep. And if you're not creating, you are the role model, you are the leader. And as much as you might say something, they're going to watch what you're doing.
Be
And
what you want to see in the world. It's
exactly.
just, it's Gandhi all over again.
Yeah. 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 So, so yeah, just remember that piece of your role. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Apologies. I think that another thing is, I think, and you can probably help me out with this, Kate. I think rituals
Mhm.
are very, very important. Just like, for example, how every single solitary practice I run, we always start with a circle time where whether we're sitting or standing, everyone's doing the same thing and we're all in a circle. And the reason for that is something in my own personal upbringing was, if you're in a circle, everyone's equal. Everyone has a voice. No one's, it's not athletes are sitting down, coaches standing, you're equal with them. And so we always have a circle time, discuss what we're going to do at practice, discuss upcoming events, talk about a quote, whatever it is, but we always have that ritual. A friend of mine who coaches always does a stupid dad joke, right? And none of the kids like it.
But the thing is that the brain is wired for pattern. It's also wired for novelty, but it's wired for pattern. So when you talk about ritual, what we often talk about as teachers is a routine.
Right.
Okay. So that kids can anticipate what's going to come next. So, we always start with a circle time, or they always start with a dad joke. And even though we go, we still anticipate it, and therefore we're wired for pattern. Oh, okay, this comes, and then this comes, and then this comes. For children under 8, they're not on a clock. Well, excuse me, the clock's only on your phone now. No one has a watch. But that idea that it's more of a sequence that they can then anticipate. Oh, okay, we're going to do this first, and then this first, and then this and this. So that what you call ritual, or in education ease, is sometimes called routines, and looking at how we group people and then how we transition out to individual work and how we do small group or big group. All of that is that idea that the brain's wired for pattern. And so let's use that, knowing that, to create what you call the rituals. Good.
Well, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think younger kids, if us, I can only talk for myself, but as a over the hill guy now, it's like, I need change all the time. Like, life is boring. I need to always constantly change. But I think when you're younger, I think constant change is overwhelming. And so if every day at practice you're throwing something new, some new skill, some new drill, I think it can be a little overwhelming. So always having that starting point or that middle point. One of my other coaching friends always does, literally, even if they're in the middle of a set, at the halfway of the practice, regardless of where they are, it's like, get out for 2 minutes, go to the bathroom, get a water, talk to your teammate. I don't care where we are. And that's the ritual. And people are literally counting it down, but they like the rituals.
Yeah. And I think we live in a world right now that is kind of bombards us with novelty.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with some novelty.
Right.
But there's something about predictability that we also need to attend to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I don't know, I think I'm on 4 or 5. I've lost track. I think I'm on 5, but I think, another important thing as a coach is, and I want to say this in a positive way, because positive is important to me, but, you're going to coach very, very few people who are going to become professional athletes, right? The majority of your people that you're working with are maybe going to have an athletic lifestyle for the rest of their lives, but they're not becoming professional athletes. And that's just a sad acknowledgement of the percentages who actually make it in the professional athletes. But to me, athletics is the vehicle that we use to teach life skills, right? And the life skills they learn through athletics are going to be the things that they are going to have forever and can apply to every aspect of their life. So again, this is, to me, that coaching the whole person is, if you're always concerned about the X's and the O's, I don't think you're going to be as successful of a coach, and I don't think your team is going to be as successful. But if you're looking at the fact that through the athletics, you can teach them grit, resiliency, picking oneself up after failure, humbleness, being able to win with grace, being able to fail with grace, goal setting, work ethic,
Yeah.
being a team player. Like those are the life skills that they're going to take away. And I think that's, I think that's an important piece of coaching is I think, especially when I was a young coach, to me, it was all about how many kids did I get to nationals? How many kids did I get to this big level meet? Did I get anyone into Olympic trials? And it was all about the accolades, the performances. And once I let go of that and started looking at developing the person and teaching life skills, the team became way more successful and we were having a lot more fun. And a lot of those, I mean, Kate can talk to this too with her teaching, is a lot of those swimmers that I had have now become my assistant coaches. So right now I have 4 coaches on my staff and 2 of them are former athletes of my own because they've learned the life skills.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the other thing about life skills, it goes back to we're teaching the whole person,
Mhm.
but I'd also like to throw in something else in there, is that if we're clear that what they're learning is life skills, not just the sports skills, not just, I don't mean they don't matter. We also can be clear with each other as a team
Right.
and also with the parents. We'll get to parents
get to-
later.
yeah.
I'm sure you got plenty of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that sense of we're here to help your child do whatever this sport is, but better, yes, but we're also here so that they become a
Person.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
become a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But you don't have to be perfect.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, we can kind of, maybe we'll segue because of time. Let's segue into parents. Because that, I mean, and again, I don't know, maybe in your situation, I am the front line, so I am the head coach. So my interaction with parents is constant and extreme. And I think you will interact with parents and they can be your best advocates and they can be also your best critics.
Mhm.
And I think something that really helped me in working with parents is remembering that, the parent's job is to be the advocate of their child. If they were not the advocate of their child, then that would kind of be an issue in and of itself, right? And so they're going to be always wondering and looking for what's best for their athlete.
In their viewpoint.
Right? And as a coach, we obviously are looking at the individual, but we have to keep an eye on the big picture, the team. What's most important to us is the team. And the parents can't necessarily see how, so all of a sudden, if, Johnny doesn't like butterfly. So would you mind if Johnny doesn't do butterfly on all these sets? And it's like, okay, A, he's not developing the skills then, but also B,
He's not participating with the team when they
He's not
butterfly, which means he's
participating.
out of it.
And then also C, like, how do I tell everyone else who doesn't want to do butterfly that they have to do butterfly, right? So I think understanding that, number one, that the parent is always going to be looking at the individual and you have to look out for the team. I think number two, that when a parent is it's usually never a well-organized phone call or conversation. It's usually an emotional reaction. And I don't want to belabor this, but like, I think the more you can take out my first reaction is always heart rate up. I got to defend myself. And that's an emotional reaction because I'm thinking they're criticizing me as a person. And I think if you can pull that piece out and look at it as they are giving you critical feedback on not you, but the program or how the team runs or how, and looking at it as a way that maybe this information could actually help us run the team better. Johnny doesn't like to do butterfly. Could you make him never do butterfly? Okay, maybe butterfly is the hardest stroke for my swimmers. Maybe I need to spend more time teaching it. Maybe we're going a little too fast. Maybe I need to make it more fun. Maybe so anyway, I think the parents is a big, because you can't do it without them. Like you can't take that piece of the triangle, you know, athlete, coach, parent. You can't pull that out because then the whole pyramid falls.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and for those, again, I'm looking at Charlene and Bev, we used to think about, you know, that we really had two clients, the child and the family. And while that maybe seems a little extreme, it was certainly true in the early childhood realm. But even as children get older and the parents sort of pull back from the daily interaction
Right.
with the child's teacher or the coach, you still they're still there. And I mean, I have gray in my hair and I'm still my mother is still in charge. I mean, you're a member of your family for all of your life, one way or the other. And I think your idea about remembering that the parent's job is trying to advocate for their child, or sometimes try to make it easier, or at least be informative. And that part where you can take a breath and try not to take it personally. I'm not saying don't take it seriously.
No, yeah.
But try not to take it personally, I think is really helpful. And we talked about that a lot. The three of us in the early in staff meetings.
Yeah, and I don't
to do it.
I don't really know the age that you guys are working with, but I also think that, you know, and then I'll get off this parent thing, but I think also what's important is that, you know, at a certain age, kids are seeking, like they've heard the point of view of their parents, they've been living under the point of view of their parents, and sometimes they're seeking, especially when they become teenagers, they're seeking this, you know, there's more to the world than this, the way my parents see it. And so they almost are, you know, you have the ability to present, you know, positivity. Parents are reinforcing positivity. Now you're reinforcing positivity. So, and it may be a different way. And I think it just allows them to see the world from a differing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
viewpoint.
And it's really useful for kids to have more than one kind of grown-up in their life.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think you all do, I mean, parents need to focus on life lessons, but they're going to do it in a different way. And we have this pretty interesting relationship with these kids that brings them out into the world, and they can learn about the world through us and therefore become successful.
Yeah.
I think for some people, their first couple of coaches or their favorite teacher were some of the most important adults. Again, when I asked some of my college students, they can tell you who they didn't like and who was unfair, but they can also tell you somebody that they really wanted to learn from. And one of their favorite assignments is what I call an action research paper, where they go interview three teachers that they know or used to or had. Yeah. Cool. You got one more? I mean,
well, I was gonna,
you got 20 more and it's already.
I got a ton more, but I, you know, kind of what I wanted to kind of sum up with was, you know, there's, you know, coaching is a privilege, and coaching is a wonderful thing, and teaching and being able to, you know, help kids and help them in their journey forward to become you or to become somebody else or become adults. And it is a big responsibility, but I also don't take it too seriously. Like, have fun with it. The goal of athletics is to play. And it's supposed to be a stress relief, not a stress adder. And you'll see that in some of your athletes, like they will take it too seriously and it'll just become no fun. I also think realizing that you're not going to be perfect. None of the kids are going to be perfect, but it's always striving to be the best you can be is really important, but don't put so much pressure on, and again, I don't want to belabor it, but one of the most stressful times I ever had was when I was a young coach and I had a kid join my team whose dad was an Olympian, a gold medalist, and former world record holder. Right. And the amount of pressure, the amount of stress, I was like, wait, I didn't even swim in college. I just was a surfer and And so, it's, you just do the best you can. Right. And you tap into the resources that you have. And I think being willing to reach out to resources, don't it's not bad to seek assistance, right? So I could ramble on forever. I don't know if anything there is even helpful, but hopefully something there is helpful.
Well, we got a lot of questions.
We
So,
do.
yeah, take a look at the little number there in the chat.
Tell you what, I will read questions to you. How about that? So you can just concentrate on answering. Thank you, Jeff and team. These are amazing questions. I want to start with one that I'm sure is on everybody's minds, and that is, you both talked so eloquently about life skills and what a coach or a trainer can bring to kids. We all know that mental health is really a big issue right now. How is that factoring into how you approach coaching?
Well, the first thing I would say is, just me, going back to what we know about development. Remember how I said the biggest piece of that rainbow was the social emotional, and that's where mental health comes in. So the idea here that that's part of our responsibility, but it's also part of the piece of working with the whole person. And I think when you establish an environment that is welcoming and belonging, but also has some, I don't know, I almost want to call them bumpers as you roll that bowling ball down. It's got some bumpers so that it's fine to say, I don't like butterfly, or I don't want to have to try pitching. It's okay to say that. It may not be okay not to try it, but maybe you can say it, that you can say, everyone doesn't want to be a pitcher, but everyone ought to be able to try it so they can see if they want to get better at it, whatever that happens to be. I'm not very good at, I can be pretty good defensively in basketball, but I can't make a basket at all.
Yeah.
I better not be a forward, but I had to get some practice in trying it.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I think mental health is definitely big, and especially coming out of the pandemic, I think you're seeing a lot of it. I think, just what Kate was saying there is like, if your focus is on developing the person and providing a positive environment and a supportive environment, I think that will in and of itself almost help people that might be struggling mentally, because that they need a place to escape. They need a place where they can get away from their stresses. And if you're creating that environment, that's a positive in their situation. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't want to ramble too long, but I think that's important. And I also want to say, like, and I might be getting off in left field, but like, as a coach, now granted, I'm in a situation where, I have a team, I coach my athletes 11 months out of the year. And in a lot of situations, especially with my high schoolers, I'm actually interacting with them probably more than their parents are, right? They have their own car, they're driving around, they're hanging out with friends, they go to school at 8. After swim practice, they're not coming back until 8 p.m. They put themselves in the room, they just do their homework. So I actually see them, 14 hours a week for 11 months out of the year. So don't underestimate, you have a lot of insight into those kids, and maybe insight that the parents and other people aren't seeing. So
I might ask the question back without having us. Like I say, I wish we were in the room. What kind of relationship you as the PE plus coaches have, say, with the families or even with the school? Because one of the things that we noticed, particularly, well, I'll use Bing as an example, when we were doing the school age program, is that we ended up sometimes setting up a conversation with the child's teacher and the school age teacher, because the kid was in both places. But I don't want to make it bigger than it already is.
Yeah.
You may end up having not much of a relationship with a kid's family or with a kid's teacher.
Yeah.
All right.
But you're part of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kate and Bruce. We've got a bunch of wonderful questions coming in, so let's see how many of them we can get to. Not to rush you, just a little. Again, thank you, everybody here in the room. Fantastic questions. Here we go. Post-pandemic, we're seeing some kids reverting to shutting down or not wanting to participate in different activities. What are some options for us to use with those kids? Are there questions that we should ask? Are there questions we should avoid? That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, so I think again, this is just my input, is I think sometimes lack of interest in participation has to do with internal fear, or that they're concerned about being judged, and they have a fear of being, that this is somehow going to, if they're not good at swimming, all of a sudden they're not necessarily a good person. And I think, again, if you're working with the whole person, you're creating that positive environment, and you're not necessarily always putting weight on performance, and you're really putting weight on involvement, and you're creating a team culture where everyone is important and everybody is valued. I think sometimes that stress that prevents them from wanting to try new things, that fear of failure, that fear of being judged, can kind of sometimes fall away, and they'll be more willing to participate.
I think you're right. I think also it's okay to watch it's okay to watch sometimes, but this idea of performance over involvement is critical, because school age kids know they're being watched, and they're being watched by everybody else that's there. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about kids who are 3 that might not notice anyone else is watching them, all your kids are older than that.
That's a good point.
So if you work the involvement rather than the performance. Yeah.
Oh, so well said, Kate and Bruce. We think about Ted Lasso saying winning is the main thing, right?
Right. Right.
All right. So here's a big one, especially for new coaches. Some kids are just flat out defiant and don't want to engage. What are some techniques to get them participating?
Well, do you want some assistant coaches? I always found, and Bev and Charlene, I always found that the ones that were the yakety yaks in the back of the circle were the ones that they actually could use it. They could shift that into leadership if I could find a place for them. That might, I don't know that that'll be possible when you don't know them yet.
Yeah, I mean,
what would you say?
That's a tough one. I think I think participation is all about, and playing games. It's like you can't have fun playing Monopoly if you just sit on the side watching your friends play. And participation is what sports is all about, and it's the joy. And so, but everyone's going to want to approach that at their own time schedule necessarily. You know what I mean? And so I have no problem with the defiant person, being like, okay, if you don't want to do this, you can sit on the sidelines and watch. And then, like Kate says, I'll start pulling them in. I'll start, hey, so you see how that person's doing her butterfly? Like, that's great. Look at the rhythm, look at the hips, and I'll start pulling them in. But I also don't allow the defiant person, and this might come out wrong, but I won't let the defiant person win, in the sense that you can hold off participating for a little bit. I might involve you, but at some point you're going to participate, and you're going to have to, and I'm happy to just kind of wait until you're ready. But what I don't think is, if you let the defiant person sit out or not have to do it, or you change your game plan for the defiant person, you've lost all control over your team, because now everybody gets the sense that, well, if I just challenge the coach and say I don't like it and it's not fun, he or she is going to alter, and so now I can control the coach. So I don't know if that's really answering, and I don't know if that's what you mean by defiant, but
if what they're trying to do is get attention,
that's a good point.
Saying that they can only watch, not that they can watch,
right,
but they can only watch for a day, that day, they're not getting any attention. And then checking in and saying, well, how was that? They go, well, I don't care. And then you watch that and you think to yourself, okay, if it happens again, they can't win and take over. Now you're going to have to bring in another, ask your other coaches what they do.
Right.
Think about talking to the parents,
Yeah.
because if both the parents and the coach say you have to participate, now you got the two grown-ups. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know the circumstances.
Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about bringing in another coach, which leads me perfectly to a couple of really good questions coming in about, especially for new coaches, transparency and sharing. So the question is, some of us are coaching for the first time. How can we support one another, make the environment transparent so that we all have a voice?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
You
that's
just said it.
yeah. I mean, you just said it. I think, Kate and I'm a coach, Kate's a teacher, and Kate and I used to, like, every Thursday we'd go for a hike, and literally it was like therapy session. Like, we would literally talk about something that came up or something exciting and banter, and just the ability to talk to your peers and to talk to your mentors about coaching or about what's going on can so help you become a better coach. And I think, again, when I was young and a young coach, my impression was if I ask for help, if I show that I don't know this, I'm like, that makes me vulnerable, and that means that I'm not a good coach. And the reality is as you get older and more experienced, you realize, like, that's actually what you need. So, I go to coaching conferences once a year. They're a lot of fun, but I go to them once a year, and I'll go sit in the big lecture hall, kind of like this. And there's a bad thing for me to say, but I don't really pick up very much. And then I'll go out to dinner with a couple of coaching buddies, and I will get so much information, whether it's just, wow, they go through the same struggles, or wow, they went through this before and they were able to share information. But again, I don't know if I'm helping with that, but I think, do not be shy to get to utilize the resources you have. Like, everyone in that classroom, plus Jeff, plus us if you need it, like, these are resources, and the more you can utilize them and the more you're willing to reach out, the better coach you're going to be and the less stressful it's going to be.
I have a question back to you all. Are you always alone when you coach?
Jeff, can you speak to that?
I'm looking at all the heads there to see if they're nodding or shaking their head.
They're not alone. Like, in terms of classes and structure, we do have site leaders who are running the site. And then there's 2 to 3 other coaches they would be like the assistant coaches in terms of, like, an organization. But no, they're never alone. There's usually, we get 15 to 25, 30 kids out at once. 2 coaches should be at one, or it's split up into thirds, or however they do it at their site, and our site leader wants to do it. But it depends on staff, but they're never alone. The site leader's always out there watching, hoping to teach and learn from those things.
Because I can't tell you how many times I turned to Charlene and said, can you help me with this?
Yeah.
She's so much more creative and artistic than I was, and I could hardly blend 2 colors. So that sense of, if you're not always alone, then that's a team teaching place where you can just say, hey, come on over and let's do this thing or whatever.
And I don't want to belabor this. We got a lot of questions, but I think, you kind of answered your own question in the sense that, how do I learn from other coaches? You just reach out and you look for resources from those coaches. And you got to remember that you're not going in, especially you guys who are new, like, you're not going in as experts as much. Like, at the same time that you're in that PE class and the students are learning, guess what? You're learning too. And that's what's so great, is in that environment, everyone's learning, even though you might be helping them learn. In doing that, you yourself is learning, yada, yada.
That is so well said, Bruce and Kate. And I'll tell you, we run a lot of these events. I've never seen such great questions. These are amazing questions. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of the list. So here's one. Boy, do I remember this with 31 preschoolers in a classroom. Let's say you're having a bad day. What tools do you use so it doesn't negatively impact your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, trust me, I've gotten.
Breathing helps.
Breathing. So, I mean, so I'm going to give you the, sorry, I apologize, but I'm going to actually give you the answer that like, you probably don't want to hear, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Is like, there are definitively times I go in and I'm having a bad day. And number one, I remember that one of the skills you have as an adult is you have a way to compartmentalize your brain. And it's very, very hard and it's mentally challenging, but you have to kind of, as soon as you walk into that gym or you walk into that pool, you have to turn off that part of your brain and turn on the other part of your brain. And this is very similar to what we coach in swim meets, right? So in a swim meet, you're going to swim 3 events per day usually. And like that first event, you might tank it. You might add time, you might feel terrible, you might lose to the person you were trying to beat. And that's what we always talk about. That was a terrible race. That was an awful race in your mind. Okay, put it in a box. We can open that box at the end of the swim meet and deal with it. But right now you got to close that and start back with this. Now, I don't have any personal tricks about that, but like that's a skill that I think this gets developed the more you do it. And I think these are the life skills that if you're part of sport, you learn how to deal with failure and how to come in. So you learn how, when things are difficult, you know, significant other just broke up with you, or you just got, you know, your car was in the shop and now it's going to cost $3,000 that you don't have, or whatever it is, you have to be able to compartmentalize it and move on. I don't know the secret to that, but I will say, and this is the part which I'm not sure you really want to do, and Kate might say, don't ever do that, Bruce. That's the stupidest thing you've ever done. But like, I will sometimes, because I think it's important that they know that you're human too, and you're not perfect and you're not always sunny and excited, that I will definitely go in sometimes and say, you know, I've had a really, really tough day. And, you know, I apologize if my patience is short. I apologize off the bat. I will do my best, but you guys just need to know that, you know, and I will be honest, sometimes I'll tell them, yeah, I just found out my car, you know, is in the shop and it's going to cost twice as much and I'm going to really struggle to pay it. And they'll be like, it's almost like a therapy session. And then all of a sudden we're even bonded more together. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're talking a little bit, if you guys are working with kindergarten to 5th graders, I wouldn't suggest you talk about the car. But what I would suggest, and I'm looking at Bev, because Bev did this as well as anybody I know, is she could just look at them and say, this isn't working very well now.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which being that honest sometimes stops the falling apart. It's like, oh, yeah, this is the 3rd time I've had to get kids back on track. This isn't working well for me. You know, you don't have to say fix it for me, but there's a way in which, with your tone of voice, there's the interpersonal tone again, that you're just sort of, excuse me, wallowing in the obvious. This is a mess.
Yeah.
Stop. And you were really always really good at that, Bev, because you were kind of just stating reality and leaving it there for a moment. And it just got everybody to kind of go, huh.
Yeah, and it's okay to do that. We work with a communication expert and he will say, parents can say to kids, you know, it feels like you're really not able to listen to me today. Can you tell me what's going on?
There we go.
Name it. Name it.
And then get inquisitive about it rather than just, I don't know, just freaking out or just quietly trying to just do nothing, because if you could do anything, you'd bite their heads off.
Well, so changing subjects, and I'll let you get back to your questions, but like back to the previous question of utilizing your resources, like this right here, it's like, I know how I do things, and like Kate can then take it and make it clearer and make it more, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like there's that, I don't know if that makes any sense, but like us from our different approaches can really make something happen, because I bring one thing to the table, she brings another thing to the table.
Well, and if you're doing team teaching, that other person hasn't gotten embroiled in it like you have. They can probably see it in a different way, or say the same thing to the kids, and the kids will listen to them instead of you. Well, instead of saying there's something wrong with me, go, oh, good, now it's getting solved.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Absolutely. I always love being part of a team, teaching with Kate and knowing that Bev was on the staff, because again, different people have different strengths. They're going to approach things differently with different kids, right? All right. I know we don't have much time together, but we're going to try to get to at least a couple more of these really, really good questions. Okay. I just love these questions. What are some non-negotiables when coaching, whether it's with your kids or the staff? Non-negotiables.
Well, do you want me to?
Yeah, give it a word.
I mean, for me, it's so this is that, I mean, a couple things is, number one, this is where you got to go back to your principles, your philosophies, your coaching style. Like for me, for example, team first, right? That always has to come, and that's a non-negotiable in my team. And so if I'm hearing a lot of me, then that's non-negotiable. You got to stop talking just about yourself and realize you're part of a team. You know, another thing is like the environment's got to be positive. So if I have a kid who's just, oh, I'm not swimming well, and oh, I don't like this, and it's just negative nilly, then, you know, that's a non-negotiable for me. So I think one thing is I think having that philosophy, and you might have something completely different. I mean, that's the beauty of coaching is everyone's going to have a team or a PE class that's going to have a different way of running it, and they're going to have different non-negotiables. You know, I mean, and I don't want to be bad in this, but like, you know, there's some great stories about the U.S. gymnastics women's way back before you guys were born, where the whole idea was to get the 6 best gymnasts in the United States together, training together and competing against each other constantly, because the idea was the more they compete against each other, the more the cream's going to go to the top. And so I don't personally like that philosophy, because you're going to get 3 amazing people, 3 people who are going to fall off, and it just creates a negative environment. But that's what somebody's philosophy was let's just have them compete and let the best man be left or woman left standing.
You know, I think on the non-negotiables, there might be something worthwhile that you guys could all talk about to sort of get what I'd call the ground rules. Because in our class, it was no name calling, no interruptions, and use your words. Okay, so there was that idea that all ideas count and everyone matters, which goes back to your team piece. But you might want to, and I found with the older kids, like when I was doing kindergarten and first grade, they could help make the rules. Now their rules tended to be no, 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 and I would want to turn them into a yes, like all ideas count. But the idea that, again, you're figuring that out so that if I can help make the rules, I'm going to help. I'm going to help follow them or
well, yes,
go along with them.
Well, and again, we're making long answers and we can't get to many questions, and we can definitely go over a little bit, but I think this is just another thing that's important is what Kate's saying is at the beginning of every season, about a week or 2 in, I do circle time with my team, and we bring out a whiteboard and we talk about what are our team goals? Like what, and it's not me just telling them, okay, I want a positive environment. I want this, I want that. They get to participate on it, and they get to decide what the goals are for this semester or for this season or whatever with the, and now all of a sudden those become your non-negotiables because the team decided on.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So Jeff, Kate, and Bruce, is it okay if we go over 5 minutes?
Fine,
Sure.
Absolutely. Keep going, please. It's wonderful.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm not exaggerating. These are the best set of questions I think that we've ever seen. So relevant, so important. So, all right, bear with us if you don't mind, Kate and Bruce.
Oh, they got a great team.
I'm glad you guys have good questions. Hopefully we're giving good answers. That's the question.
Okay, I'm going to save that one question, but here we've talked about this a little, but I think it's so important, especially if you're a new coach. What do you do about the kids who say, I don't know, I don't care, How do you approach those kids?
I got those.
Okay, well then, why don't you do that? Because for most kids, well, yeah, for most kids that are in elementary school, they had to go to elementary school. Do they have to do the PE
Yeah,
plus? Well,
Well, it's their PE program.
is it in the middle of the day or is it after school?
It's in the school day.
Okay, so it's part of school. Okay. What do you say?
I mean, you know, and again, Kate probably will shed more light on this, but like, so when I hear the question of what do you do with the defiant person, what do you do with the person who doesn't want to participate, you know, to me, those are different symptoms of the same problem,
Mhm.
right? I feel like the person who doesn't want to participate, oh, I don't like athletics, I don't like the sweat, I don't, you know, it's again, it's a fear of whatever, right? It's you know, they do, you know, it's that growth mentality, fixed mentality, right? That you need to somehow create that environment where they want to participate, whether it's they start by observing and then they get intrigued and they see, wow, you know, all my friends are doing it and they like it, so I guess I'll like it too. You know, I mean, I think, and again, I'm probably not giving a great answer, but I think the worst thing you can do is like that kind of like, you know, so-and-so is defiant or so-and-so doesn't really want to be a part of this. I think you got to realize that there's a whole person there and there's something in the way that's holding them back, whatever that is. And so it's trying to find reluctance, fear, you know, maybe they're being bullied by somebody in that group and they don't want to be with that group. Like, I think it's just, I don't know if that's making any sense, but it's finding that and then providing the opportunity for them to get in a positive way.
So
It's not a great
maybe,
answer.
so maybe we look at that last piece that I mentioned, which was the curriculum was about teaching and learning. If you have a lesson plan
Right.
and you have some extra techniques in your pocket, if the lesson plan doesn't, you know, what I always say is take a hold of it, but with a loose grip. But if you have a lesson plan, you're going to more likely get people that are going to participate, but also vary the format. If
Yeah.
someone's saying, I don't care, what if you had a format where everyone needs to pair up and do something? So no matter what, even if that person doesn't do much, even if you didn't do much, I got a pair. So there's a couple of us, or you do small group of, you know, trip, you know, threes instead of
Yeah.
the whole group together. If you vary the format, someone who might otherwise say, I don't care, just kind of gets swept up in the process. And even if they pretend like they don't care, they've got a partner.
Right.
And they might do a little.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, is like, sometimes you have to look at your teaching plan or your coaching plan, and you might have to, you know, change how you're doing it to target different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are down to the last couple questions and then we're going to let everybody wrap. This is a really good one. How do you handle setbacks and failures with your team and turn them into opportunities for growth? You've kind of both touched on this, but it's such a good question. Handle setbacks and failures.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, it's hard, you know, we live in a society with social media where we're oversensitized to success, like everything.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you see a social media post about failure? There, you know, 90% are about how I went on this great vacation, I adopted this great pet, my kid did this. Like, they're all positive. So we're in this sense that success is everyone's having success.
Well, yeah,
But
I mean, you look at people's Facebook and it's only the great photos. It's not the
right. Oh, I get. But I mean, you know, and this is kind of a mindset, is if you take out the self, right? When a failure happens, a setback happens, our first reaction, I think, is, you know, it's hard to learn from, they hurt. It's hard to learn from them because we're focused on as a reflection of ourselves. Oh, we played this game and we got destroyed. And I thought I had taught everyone how to do, shoot the basket or pass the ball, and nobody was doing it. I failed as a coach, right? Or the team or this player failed, whatever. But I think, finding that way to make the criticism or the setbacks, the failures, less of a criticism of the person and more an opportunity to learn about how you can become better. And I think if you have goals set up, individual goals would be great, but I don't think you guys are in that environment to set individual goals. But if you have team goals and people can be always striving for this team goal, those small little setbacks along the way aren't as critical or aren't as demoralizing. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I think it does. I think this idea about instead of it being, oh, I made a mistake, it's like, well, what could I do different next time? And sometimes you can brainstorm that as a coach with a child, with a kid, or with a group of kids. All right, so how did that go? Ask them the question, how did that go? And somebody say, fine. Somebody say, awful. Well, what might we do next time differently? And almost we it sometimes, we it, so it's not just about the one. But I also,
right.
It's not just about the one.
Yeah. Well, and I think, sorry, but
ahead.
I think, also, I think, setback, I don't know if we're talking about setback of a kid or setback as a coach, but either way, I think, I lost my train of thought. I think, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Okay.
So I just going to say, I want everybody to notice how Kate phrased that as a question. How did that go? That means you as a coach need to actually stop and listen. Don't tell them how it went.
Yeah. Well,
Critical.
sorry, Charlene, I don't mean to you reminded me what I was thinking.
Oh, good.
That's teamwork.
Well, that's teamwork.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think exactly what Charlene is saying, what Kate is saying is I think as coaches and as teachers, especially working with little kids, we always look at them as receivers, right? They receive information. They are told how to do things. And I think the more when a setback happens, like Kate's saying, and Charlene, if you ask a question or you turn it around so that they're just not receivers, but they're actually givers, you didn't make that pitch or we didn't win the game or whatever. How did that feel? What can we do better? What do we take from this? And put them a little bit more in that driver's seat. Like sometimes when I have a kid who's struggling with a skill, instead of like, okay, let me give you some lessons and let me pull you out and let me work on this and let me make you just a receiver, I will actually put them in a position of being an example, being a teacher, being so that now all of a sudden they're a giver. And sometimes that helps you get through a setback or a difficulty or whatever. Sorry.
Because the true meaning of play is to be an active, engaged person. So that really helps. The other thing is, wasn't it Michael Jordan that said, I missed more than I made?
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. We've oversensitized ourselves to success. We only look at the ones that went through the basket, but he missed as many as he just took a lot of shots.
Yeah.
You got to keep trying it. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So listen, that is a great answer. So we've come to the final question, and this one I just think is really brilliant. So we're going to let you guys think for a second. Question is, do you mind sharing a specific moment when you impacted a kid who you thought really wanted nothing to do with your sport or class?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it happens.
People come back to you years later, I'm sure, Bruce, and say, I really what you did.
I can say one thing. When I was student teaching in kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher had been a 5th grade teacher, and she didn't really want to be teaching kindergarten. And so when I went into the classroom for the semester, she said, well, I'm going to give you these kids, they're all failures. So my small group was the kids who failed, who were failing already as kindergartners. And I didn't believe it. So I just kept working with them. And this one kid, oh my gosh, he'd get hit up at the gate and they'd take his lunch. I mean, it was just one thing after another. And I worked really hard with them. And then I finished the time with all of them in the first in May, because we were in the semester, but they finished their schooling the middle of June. So I went back a couple weeks later, and he just beamed, and he just, "You're back. What's your name?" And I realized that I made a big difference in his life. But just for that, he held it. And he said, "You're my favorite teacher."
Wow.
And so I knew that in a small way, even though I wasn't going to be rich or famous in teaching, that I had made a difference in the life of someone that even his teacher had said was a failure, and he didn't feel that way anymore.
That's great.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a great one.
never forget him.
I mean, and these are the aha moments and what keeps us in this low paying profession. But yeah, I mean, probably the one that stands out for me is I had a gentleman who I coached not too long ago, from my standpoint, maybe about a decade ago. And he just didn't really take to the sport. And he was a member of our team but it was a struggle. And then he went into high school and he became a water polo player. And then literally like last year, I'm coaching in a swim meet and he's coaching for another team. And, so he came up to me and started talking about how, I learned so much and seeing you as a coach and what you were able to do for me made me wanted to go into coaching. And so that was kind of a, like, are you sure? like it was those are the fun ones. And that's that unexpected, fun stuff. Anyway.
That's
Yeah.
But the thing is that
You never know.
do make a difference in their lives, even if you don't hear about it.
Yeah.
So don't pretend, don't think that you don't make a difference. I can tell you that from so many of my community college students that would name someone like you as being one of the people that just make them decide they could stay and be successful in school.
Yeah. So thank you guys and ladies for what you're doing.
Thank you, Kate and Bruce. And Jeff, why don't you join us and wrap things up? I really thank you both. That was fantastic. And thank you all for all the great questions.
Thank you, everybody, so much for all that. It was so rewarding and beneficial to hear from you. I can speak for all of us. It's been our best presentation this whole week. So thank you so much for that. I'd love to continue and hopefully we can get you guys in person, and it would be awesome to have you come speak to us even more so we can continue to learn, because there's so many different things that I'm sure we all had takeaways from, and shout out to them for some really awesome questions. And thank you for being so honest with your answers.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good luck. Hope to see you again.
All right.
We will
Thanks.
see you
And
guys
thanks,
soon.
Bev and Charlene.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you. All right.
Bye.